better roll them dice. You never know if it could change your life. Take a chance, you're neither wrong or right. You never know if you don't roll them dice. You better roll them dice. You never know if it could change your life. Take a chance, you're neither wrong or right.
You're listening to Dungeon Master of None, a role-playing podcast for everyone. I'm Dungeon Master Matt.
And I'm Dungeon Master Rob, and today we are going to talk about, well, you guys want to play an RPG, and we're going to start from the very beginning and just walk you through it. Chances are that if you came across this podcast, that you either already play or you're interested in playing, and it is our hope that we can maybe get you headed off in the right direction. Together we have a pretty good amount of experience, and
hey, it's our first damn episode, so if you're listening to this, you probably want to play an RPG. You saw cool things, you saw other people having fun and doing this fun activity, and you're like, yeah, I could do some of this myself. And so if that is you, listen to this episode, and by the end, you will have a clear path laid in front of you to follow.
And that brings me to why we wanted to do this specific podcast as a starting point, not the podcast as a whole, which is inspired by the fact that we do a lot of dungeon mastering and wanted an outlet to talk about it. But specifically this, we wanted to approach because, believe it or not, Dungeons and Dragons is cool again. And there are a lot of reasons for that. It's been featured on some major television shows like Community.
Alrighty. Shouldn't there be a board or some pieces or something to Jenga?
No, this is a role-playing game. It takes place entirely in our collective imagination.
Ooh.
Stranger Things.
Stranger Things, more notably.
The Demogorgon! We're in deep shit.
But it's also become popular because of a whole new phenomenon of people streaming their games live. Matt and I were somewhat blindsided by this, like a lot of us older players were, but it's actually very cool, and there are some very interesting people doing it, like Matt Mercer, the voice of McCree from Overwatch.
It's high noon.
And this has brought on a whole new generation of people who like to watch things online.
We have two guiding creeds here at Dungeon Master of None. One, exactly what you said, D&D is cool again. Or maybe it's always been
maybe
cool.
For the first time.
Maybe for the first time ever. D&D is cool. Anyone can play it and be cool. And that's our second one. D&D is for everyone. It is not for a certain type of people of any category. And whoever you are, whatever your station or place in life is, you can have fun playing a role-playing game or something like Dungeons and Dragons. That's why we're here, to bring this to you.
This is exactly true, and this is an important thing for both Matt and I, who have recruited otherwise non-role-playing game type people to play in our games and had great success. These are games that appeal to all types of people. They appeal to nerds, of course. They also appeal to drama kids. They appeal to, sports teams. They appeal to anybody who enjoys social activity, which is, even for introverts, technically everybody from time to time.
Absolutely. And this is you will never, in the 40-year history of Dungeons & Dragons and role-playing games, have a better opportunity than now to invite your friends and round them up and get them to do this with you. As we said, it's in pop culture and it's in like our everyday activities for fun. People I've known for years who've never done any sort of group activity other than going to the movies or going out to drink together are having board game nights where they play Settlers of Catan or Seafall over and over again. And this is your perfect in. If you've got a group of friends who wants to do something like this, you can say, hey, you know how we all love coming together around a table, a couple of drinks, probably alcoholic, a potluck dinner, and playing a board game? You can do that with a role-playing game as well.
It's never been easier, and the reason for that is that we've already got the introduction. If your friends like to play board games, almost anybody does. It's better than ever. It is so easy to get people together and sell them on Dungeons & Dragons. And it is modular. You can adjust it to fit your group of friends. You can make it as dice rolly or roleplay or as gamey as you want it to be to fit your friend group or your Dungeons and Dragons group.
All right, so we got to take a step back here and talk about
absolutely.
what the hell is D&D, Dungeons and Dragons, or a role-playing game? Now, you may have seen, some kids around a table in E.T. or in Stranger Things, but what is a role-playing game in general?
Right. So the core element, believe it or not, has nothing to do with dice. Chances are that you are going to use dice, and dice are fun. And they're the sort of the manual randomizer to make the game interesting and to simulate your actions. But the core of the game is role playing. The core of the game for almost anything that you play is going to be the characters and how they interact with each other.
And that's a great point. And how I like to explain it to people who are new to the game, people you may be trying to recruit, is role playing is like, imagine you're sitting around a table and together you're all doing a radio drama where you each have characters who you are either going to describe what they're doing or, in fact, use your voice to speak for them. And throughout this radio drama, you have one person, a dungeon master, a game master, a storyteller, who is setting up the story. They describe the scene, they set the conflict in the action, they describe what challenges you're going up against. I say you all sit around and you have fun and you make jokes and you do a improv radio drama that no one else will hear but you.
And I love Matt's description of it as a radio drama. I like to tell my players that we're building a shared narrative together. We're telling a story.
Yeah, a shared narrative together.
Shared narrative together. We're telling a story as a group. And the most important thing is that we're all coming together to tell the same kind of story. So I use this to sort of resolve conflicts in my group, to remind them that this is a story, this is a tale that we are weaving together. And if you are trying to tell a fantasy story, you're playing Dungeons and Dragons. If you want to tell a story set in the Matrix, maybe you're playing Shadowrun. If you want to play tell a post-apocalyptic story, maybe you're playing GURPS or something like that. But these are just frameworks for the same kind of activity, which is getting together to tell a story.
When you get together to tell a story, unlike when you're sitting down and playing a game of Settlers of Catan or something like that, you'll look back at that game of Settlers of Catan in a week, in a month, and you probably won't even remember who won. But the thing about a role-playing game is these are stories and experiences that you'll remember for probably forever, and that bind your group of friends closer together. And that's the really great thing about it, is that it's such a shared experience that you remember it, and it makes you, either if these are people who are not your friends, it makes them your friends. If these are people who are your friends, it makes them better friends.
And that's a point that I'm going to continue to emphasize as long as we do this podcast, and is demonstrable. That you can build some extremely enduring friendships around a role-playing game table. Some of my oldest friends are people that I have played role-playing games with, and you will also find out very quickly who you can't stand, but you will also find out who you could get along with exceptionally well, and this is a great crucible for friendship.
I mean, to be honest, to put all of our cards on the table here, Rob and I were not actually very good friends until we started playing a role-playing game together.
This is 100% correct. Matt and I did not get along until we spent some time around the gaming table. And that was sort of a function of being 13. But also,
Well, yes. Rob it was someone I came home and said, I don't think he likes me, to my parents. But then now we are best friends thanks to role playing games.
It's a common
problem. Beautiful thing that we wouldn't have had without this. So it's like a shared radio drama. It's a shared narrative that you create. Why exactly we've touched on why it's more enduring than a board game. Why is it more fun? I've got an answer for this, but I'm sure you have something to say.
Well, I just thinking about what we were just talking about, it's the same reason why you might prefer a multiplayer computer game or console game to a single player one, even if the single player is more polished, because the the situations and the stories and the things that will happen to you if you're playing Counter-Strike or Dota or something are completely dependent on your fellow players. It's more unpredictable and it's more fluid, and it's something that's going to be created on the fly. And in the same way that a game of Catan is great, but you basically know how it's going to end, a game of Dungeons and Dragons or a game of Shadowrun is completely open-ended. It can change at any time based on how people respond to certain events.
It's like, imagine there's a shady guy in a trench coat on a street corner being like, hey kids, I've heard you like consuming media. Would you like to try social media? Take that analogy to regular games, and then Dungeons and Dragons is that tasty social media content. And beyond that, it's a game where it gives something for all kinds of different people to do. For people who are planners, for people who are more social butterflies, they all can get a chance to shine in a game of Dungeons and Dragons.
It's a little bit like, actually, it's a lot like, and this reference is probably going to be lost on almost everybody, but it's a little bit like the A-Team, right? Everybody comes together and everybody has a role. You've got a guy who plans, you've got a guy who shoots, and you've got a guy who does voices. And this actually describes your average Dungeons and Dragons group almost perfectly. And
right, you'll find out which of your friends can do like a crazy Cockney accent.
Exactly. And if it works well and everybody has good chemistry and everybody's like committing to the same story, then you love it when a plan comes together, and it's perfect.
So, to play Dungeons and Dragons, you really only need, I'm going to say, 4 basic things. 1, a space to play, some couches sitting around your dining room table, or even on the internet, and we'll do some other episodes about that. 2, you need usually some kind of rule book, right? You can buy the basic Dungeons & Dragons book. There's a free online thing that we'll link to in the episode. 3, you need a group of people. Dungeons & Dragons or a role-playing game needs to be played with at least more than one person, preferably about 4 to 5, I would say, is about the best.
4 is a pretty solid number to aim for. You can play with less, you can play with more.
And the last thing you'll need is just some paper, pens and pencils, and some dice of various sorts. And that's all you need. That's all that should be in front of you when you play a game.
And that's just, and we'll focus on Dungeons and Dragons because realistically that's what most of our audience is going to be playing. But there are systems that are even lighter than that you can play with just a cup of D6s or 1d6 or a deck
or
of
a deck of cards.
Yep, it's exactly right.
Jinx, buy me a Coke.
These are fun. A lot of those are a great way to play. And if you want to ease your friends into it, maybe you want to play with Everyone is John or Fate or something really rules light just to loosen up. But the slightly crunchier ones, your Dungeons and Dragons, your Shadowruns or whatever, do eventually the ability to, Matt and I believe that the having enough rules to provide structure is the best way to build a game.
So of that group of people, to get started, you just need one person to be the dungeon master. And as we talked about before, if a role-playing game is some kind of radio drama, the dungeon master, or a shared narrative, the dungeon master is like the producer and the director. If it's a shared narrative, he's the person who writes the sort of descriptions of what you see. The dungeon master is the person who is responsible for coordinating and the playing of the game, and at a more basic level, just making sure everyone has the best time they can in this shared experience. So the dungeon master has to be someone who probably knows the rules, maybe not the best of everyone, but is at least learned the basics when you get started. So that's the first thing a dungeon master has to do. The second a dungeon master has to do is they have to come up with some kind of story or conflict for you guys to play out, right? Role-playing games, at least as far as I know, there's no like Seinfeld of role-playing games where you start with absolutely nothing, right? A dungeon master has to come up with a great idea for a story, which is there's an evil empire to be defeated. There's an artifact that must be destroyed. but it can be almost anything.
It's easier than you think to create a narrative. Not only do you have decades of pre-written adventures to draw from, but once you get your characters invested in the story, once you get your players invested in the story, it'll practically write itself. They'll drive the action themselves. They'll push you toward a certain narrative goal. They'll have things in mind that they want to do, and it becomes quite easy to maintain the narrative. If you're doing a particularly good job, and the director-producer analogy is a good one, because if you're doing a particularly good job, you can just step back and the game will often run itself for a little while. Your players will carry it.
Trust your actors.
Trust your actors, exactly. Some of the best sessions I've ever had, I just let my players argue it out for 30 or 45 minutes.
And there's a couple ways, and we'll touch on this more in later episodes, so stay tuned. But there's, just to go over the basics, there's a couple ways you can start with this. You can go with something that's very clear and, that your players have to do. Your players are all captives on a ship, and they must escape. Your players are all on to go with more ships, on a cruise ship infested with the undead, with zombies, and must get off. Or you can go just really simple and open. Let's say you design a village. You say your players are new adventurers. They come to a village in search of gold and treasure, and then provide them several options that they can procure these things. And so you can set up the world in any way you want, but there needs to be just something there to drive your players.
That can be, a really simple way to just construct your grand ideas. You've got a villain, you've got a MacGuffin, and you've got, sort of a way that they're going to interact, and the players have to find the MacGuffin and defeat the villain, and some variation on that. And almost every RPG is going to work within, a function of your very basic narrative structure. And
you can steal from almost anything, right? Any book you've read, any movie or television you saw, you take them, you mix them up, and there you go. There's your idea for what you're going to do. And if this is your first time playing a role-playing game, the more simple, the better.
And that's a great way to get started. If you look at and this is one of the best parts of most role-playing books, if you look at any campaign setting or basic rule book, at the end or sometimes at the beginning, the authors will list the media that inspired them. And that's a great way to build a theme and to build sort of a feel for your adventure. But it's also a great way for you to think about what kind of adventure you want to run. Ask your players what they like, or ask yourself what you like. Maybe you're a big fan of pulp adventure and you love Indiana Jones and Sky Captain in the World of Tomorrow. And so you're going to run a game with lots of adventure and car chases and shootouts and ancient artifacts. Or maybe your friends are all Game of Thrones fans and you're going to run something with high intrigue and lots of, ancient lore. But this is just it's just a framework to build your story.
And there's nothing wrong with the basics. We all come to this world filled with a lot of expectations of what a role-playing game is. And if it's your first time and you want to run Dungeons and Dragons with all of the tropes that your players are familiar with from movies and TV, how do you sell your group of friends or acquaintances on this concept? And I would say, first off the bat, tell them, be upfront with it. Say, this is Dungeons and Dragons. It's cool now. And I think people will want to do it. But number two, I would say, hey, where we would normally go for a Thursday night happy hour, why don't this time, I've made some fresh, from scratch hummus, and everyone can bring a 6-pack. Come over to my house and we're going to do this other thing instead of happy hour.
This is extremely good advice. Not only should you just say, hey, this is Dungeons & Dragons, the stigma is largely gone. People are now intrigued and interested. I have had plenty of normal friends who were not at all turned off and, in fact, excited to try it. And the second piece is good, too. Make some food, buy some beer, bribe your friends, And if you sit them down with everything they need, character sheets and dice and paper and rulebook ready to go, who's going to say no to that? It's a good time, especially if you're already used to doing things like playing board games together. And I think that you'll find that even people who are a little self-conscious or might not be inclined to this sort of thing really, really warm up to it.
And that's what's great about the fact that everyone's playing board games right now is that, and why we think everyone's soon going to be playing role-playing games together as well, is that board games and the fact that people play them as adults and teenagers and old people and kids is that it's removed the stigma is that board games are either for weird nerds obsessed with trains or B, children, is that we want to say that, yeah, the same stigma applies to role-playing games. They're not just for children or for weird nerds. So I think our second piece of advice is invite an interesting group of people together, right? Don't just invite your friends from one certain segment of your life or your population. And buried in that, I'm saying don't just invite your nerdiest male friends, right? Invite everyone.
And this so we're assuming that maybe you're the person who's going to end up being the dungeon master, even if you're a new player. And maybe you're not, and that's okay. Maybe you're going to forward this on to the person that you hope will be the dungeon master. But regardless of who ends up with that role, know that it's not necessarily the nerdiest people who are going to be the best at this. This isn't a game for math whizzes or for computer programmers. It's for people who like to be around people who like to explore and work within social situations. And there's a lot of ways for people who are otherwise socially awkward to mitigate some of the awkwardness, which is why it's so great for nerds, because it allows us to work through and be social with, sort of a mediator. And there's no shame in that. It's actually quite terrific. And this is one of the reasons why I think one of the reasons why this is getting more popular and why it's easy to sell to people is that we're all looking for, not to get too top down about it, but, we're all looking for ways to reconnect, ways to be social, ways to recapture community, because we're all so segmented with social media and with our, going to our cubicles and what.
Oh, slow down there, David Brooks.
Sorry. I'm just saying, this is a great way to reconnect with your friends and to get together without a whole lot of complicated, we're drifting apart, blah, blah, blah.
What we're hoping is that one day we can get to the point where someone will write a think piece that says millennials are killing Dungeons and Dragons.
Exactly.
That's exactly what we want to happen.
Once we get to that point, we will have succeeded. Maybe you're a Critical Role listener, or maybe you saw it on Stranger Things. Maybe you'd like to know more. And you're intimidated but interested, and we're here to tell you that it is so incredibly easy. In our next couple
Just go for it.
Just go for it. We're going to tell you exactly what you need to get started, exactly where to go, what you need.
Go ahead, and even if you don't have a plan, even if you don't have an idea for an epic 10-part campaign or story, just tell your friends, hey, let's play Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah, start small.
It will already get the wheels going.
Think of a just like a quick 1-part adventure, a jewel heist, or a train robbery, or literally just kicking in the door of a dungeon and your barbarian friend and his gnomish rogue companion and sexy elf sorceress are going to blast their way till the necromancer in the back, and then you'll see where you go from there. But get together, roll some dice, see if you like it. And we're just basically, the point of this first podcast is to tell you that you absolutely can do it. It's easy. Your friends will love it. You'll have a good time. And
it's like that weird French ghost in the most disturbing of Pixar's movie says, like, anyone can cook, anyone can play role-playing games. Anyone. And we're going to be here along the way.
Anyone can play role-playing games.
People who play role-playing games. Anyone can cook. Kissy finger gesture.
Kissy fingers.
It's that taste you know and enjoy. Role-playing games. And we're going to be here along the way. And if you're someone who's played role-playing games or Dungeons & Dragons for a long time, stick with us, because we're going to be reviewing RPGs, fantasy and sci-fi novels. We're going to give you stuff for your campaign to play with your friends. So if you've got a campaign going, listen to us and you can steal our stuff. We'll also be here to answer your questions about role-playing games, all of your problems. So one-stop shop for role-playing games, Dungeon Master of None.
So yeah, over the next few episodes, we'll be ramping up into, how to get started. And then as we go on, we're hoping to offer a lot more concrete options for you to add to your games. Adventure hooks, items, characters, NPCs, all sorts of things, as well as talking about strategy and talking about a little bit of theory. I promise not to bore you, but really getting into the crunchy of how to be a good dungeon master, how to play Dungeons and Dragons, how to enjoy it.
It is I, Carlos the Dwarf. The dragon has been slain, and you're free to rule your kingdom.
Well, congratulations, Daniel. You just finished your first Dungeons & Dragons campaign.
Woo!
All right.
Thanks, guys. Hey, this is really fun. You guys want to do this tomorrow night?
Sure.
Yeah.
I would, if Harris killed me again.
Oh.
You had it coming, Bill.
Well, we'll kick his ass tomorrow night, Bill. Just leave it to Carlos.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get another drink. You guys want anything?
No.
Gordon? Bill? All right.
Wow, he's cool.
Yeah. Does him wanting to play with us again mean that he's turning into a geek? Or we're turning into cool guys?
I don't know. I'm gonna go for us being cool guys.
Yeah, I'll buy that. Yeah, definitely cool guys.
Cool.